Hello and welcome to Learning with Lovo. Today we will be discussing formations and formation maneuvers. See my previous video for formation takeoffs, and in the future I will be covering formation landing. I will go over the basics, briefly cover air-to-air Tacan and rejoins, then discuss various formations and their uses, ending with how to maneuver as a division. All my descriptions of the formations will be based on the Hornet. The positions won't change much for other jets. You should be able to translate them without difficulty, or if you need, take a look in their flight manuals to see how they line up to be in a particular formation. Let's get started with the basics. A formation is when groups of two or more aircraft fly in a coordinated way, with the aim of achieving a goal and supporting each other. This could be going from place to place or engaging enemy fighters. The combined strength of a unit and their abilities to visually support each other make them far greater than the sum of their parts. A well-coordinated and cooperating flight can dominate a battlefield. One of the fundamental tasks of flight members is to be visually supporting each other. Each aircraft has a blind spot, and even if you're checking your surroundings as well as you should, a bandit could approach from your 6 without you knowing. If you have a wingman in formation, they will be able to check your 6. Bear in mind, if you're in a tight formation, your blind spots will overlap. There are a myriad of ways a flight can support each other and work together tactically. As I said earlier, a flight is worth more than the sum of its parts. Let's take a look at the components of a flight. There is a flight lead, also known as -1 in the formation, and makes the decisions on what the flight does, where it goes, and in which formation, as well as checking the 6 of their flight members. There can be multiple wingmen who are -2 and onwards. Their job is not to crash into -1, maintain formation, and check the flight 6. 2 or 3 ships together are called a section, led by -1. 2 sections are a division, overall led by -1, with section 2 managed by the first ship in it. That will be -3 in the case of 2 two-ship sections. There are many formations, each with different qualities that make them appropriate for different situations. I will go over them briefly with their pros and cons, and you can choose which you prefer. I will split the formations into 2 categories, tactical and administrative. Tactical formations are, as you would imagine, for high-threat situations and weapon employment. Administrative formations are for low or no-threat situations, like transiting into an AO or performing a landing break, for example. I'm going to pause briefly now to go over air-to-air Tacans, as they are hugely useful and I will be using them throughout the video. A Tacan is a piece of radio navigation equipment to give another Tacan user a distance and direction to itself. This is how you likely will have been locating several airfields in DCS, as well as the carrier and tankers. The aircraft we use their Tacan equipment to locate each other, but due to the smaller size of our fighters and therefore the smaller Tacan equipment, they can only provide a distance, not a direction. -1 should set their Tacan to any channel lower than 64. Air-to-air should be selected. The letter doesn't really matter, but in theory air-to-air Tacans should be Yankee. Ensure it is on and selected as the nav source. The flight should set their Tacan to the same settings except the channel, which should be set to -1's channel plus 63. So if the lead is on 13, the flight should tune to 76. Now the flight should see their distance to -1, and -1 will see the distance to the closest wingman. Let's look at rejoins. The first thing to cover is how to rejoin and overshoot. Unless you performed a formation takeoff, you will start out of formation and need to get into position. There are 2 ways to achieve this, a straight rejoin and a turning rejoin. You will also need to know what to do if you mess up your rejoin. This is an overshoot. A straight rejoin is a method of joining on your lead from the rear as they fly straight. Lead should tell the flight what speed and heading he or she is flying. Wingman should approach -1, taking care not to fly directly at them and paying attention to your rate of closure and distance. A good rule for closure rate is 50 to 100 knots outside of half a mile, down to 25 to 50 knots by a quarter mile, and reducing from there to smoothly hold at your desired position. If you mess up and are in danger of breaking the 3-9 line with who you're forming up on, perform an overshoot. Lower the nose, throttles to idle, and turn away from lead to avoid going under or in front of them. When you have gotten back into control of your rate of closure, move back behind -1 and begin another rejoin. Turning rejoin. A turning rejoin is always easier in my opinion, as you can cut across lead's orbit as needed to quickly close with them without having accelerated to a difficult to manage speed. Lead should begin a 30 degrees of bank turn and announce to the flight their speed, altitude and direction of turn. wingmen should put their velocity indicator in front and slightly high of Dash 1 to be in lead pursuit. As you close with lead, transition to lag pursuit and perform a low or high yo-yo as needed to place yourself behind and to one side of lead. Smoothly move into your position from here. If you need to overshoot on a turning rejoin, lower the nose, throttles to idle and go into lag pursuit so your velocity indicator is behind lead. This will put you outside of the orbit where you can stabilize. Then move back behind and below lead to start rejoining again. With rejoins taken care of, let's get into the formations. I will be discussing two types of formations. Administrative formations are those not intended for combat or situations where there are threats, the opposite being tactical formations. Let's start with some administrative formations. Fingertip. Fingertip is the quintessential administrative formation. It's the closest together, so it looks the coolest, meaning you've probably all tried it at some point. This also makes it the most dangerous and concentration intensive. You're not going to get anything else done as a wingman other than staring at Dash 1 to maintain formation. This is known as being padlocked. As lead, you will have to carefully warn your flight of upcoming maneuvers, slowly banking or climbing to allow your flight to keep up. Turns will be done with a wingman staying in plane with lead's wings. So if you're on the right and lead turns left, you climb slightly to stay off their wingtip. You have 2 points of reference to maintain fingertip, looking straight down the leading edge of the wing and lining up the two engine nozzles. I'd recommend lining up the nozzles first, then moving left or right to be looking down Dash 1's wings. You're now in fingertip. Dash 2 is usually on lead's right, Dash 3 on lead's left, Dash 4 on 3's left. Dash 4 should be flying fingertip with Dash 3. Your use for this formation is transiting in daytime with poor visibility or showing off. The pros are, you can see your flight even in very poor weather, and it's cool. The cons are, it's too dangerous to do at night. Your maneuverability is poor and mutual visual support is non-existent. Parade. Parade uses the same references as fingertip, but with all jets on the same side of lead. The uses for parade are performing brakes and flying in weather. Pros and cons are the same as fingertip. If you were a two-ship, you can use parade for section instrument approaches and departures. Balanced parade. Balanced parade is a slightly looser version of fingertip. As Dash 2 and 4, you are in fingertip exactly as just described. Dash 3, and therefore the second section, are slightly further out. Dash 3 should line up with lead's leading wing edge, as before, but now lining up Dash 2's nozzles. The uses for balanced parade are transiting zero threat areas with good visibility. Pros and cons are the same as fingertip. Cruise. Cruise, as you may imagine, is great for moving around in low threat environments. Here we introduce the concept of a cone of maneuver. Dash 2 has lined up lead's wingtip with their helmet and is holding with their nose 10 feet behind Dash 1's nozzles. Dash 3 is on the other side, lining up the wingtip with lead's helmet and 10-foot clearance on Dash 2's nozzles. Dash 4 is lining up helmet with wingtip on Dash 3, also with 10 feet clearance. The cone I mentioned earlier means that rather than being fixed in this spot, we take it as max angle and distance to the jet we're fixed to. This means we can move about within a space behind our lead without risk of collision with other flight members. If Dash 1 decides we need to turn, they can do so without needing to give much thought to the flight's positioning, and the resulting displacement within the formation is accounted for. The uses for cruise are transiting no and low threat areas in visual conditions, as well as rejoins. The pros are fair maneuverability. The cons are limited mutual visual support. That finishes the administrative formations. Now on to the tactical ones. Line abreast, spread, wall. This formation has many names and it is very simple in concept. All your flight members spread out in a straight line perpendicular to the direction of travel. Use of air-to-air Tacan is essential here, as keeping your position is key. Separation should be 1 to 1.5 miles sidewards. You can have a little lag backwards and up to 5,000 feet vertical separation if needed. Lead should give heading, speed and altitude if not already stated, as well as which side to form up on. Wingman should move out in that direction so that Dash 2 reads 1 to 1.5 miles, Dash 3 reads 2 to 2.5 miles, and so on. This is an offensive combat spread. If you are more defensive, you can tighten up the spread to 0.7 to 1 miles for a defensive combat spread. The uses for line abreast are medium to high altitude combat situations. Offensive combat spread is better for an air threat, while defensive combat spread more suits a ground threat. It suits good visibility as staying coordinated in night or in weather is challenging. Adding even more lateral or vertical separation can be done to make it harder for an air adversary to detect the whole formation. If they commit on a certain flight member, the other members can engage while the attacked member defends. The pros are excellent mutual visual support and a great ability to bring all your sensors and weapons to bear on the same area. You will also pass over a target at the same time, meaning there are no trailing sections that now have to deal with an alerted enemy. The cons are limited maneuverability. You can only really do check turns, tac turns and hook turns. We'll come back to these later. You also can't take this formation to low level, as you can quickly lose sight of wingmen behind terrain or encounter terrain that separates you entirely from your flight. Fighting wing. Fighting wing is a two-ship formation, with the wingman in a 30 to 70 degree cone, 500 to half a mile from lead. 45 degrees would be on the canopy bow for the Hornet, so keeping lead near your bow would have you in the right spot. Once again, this is a cone, so as -2 you can move around a fair bit as needed, helping you work your sensors and weapons, or respond to turns. Highly used during World War II, nowadays you'll mainly use it for daytime low to medium threat, transiting and holding. It gives excellent maneuverability, but limited mutual visual support due to its proximity. Pros are maneuverability, good poor weather or low altitude integrity, and it allows a little space to use your cockpit. Cons are poor mutual visual support, and the section can easily be spotted in one go. Wedge. Wedge looks like two pairs of fighting wing, but the separation is greater. The sections are separated in trail by 1.5 to 3 miles. The wingmen want to be 0.6 to 1 DME from their lead, with a 30 to 60 degree cone. Wedge gives you solid maneuverability and fair mutual visual support. This is a good balance for low level attack. Pros are great offensive ability for air threats to your front. Inexperienced wingmen may benefit from good visual proximity to their section lead, and it can work well in poor weather and at low level. Cons are less good visual support. You can all be spotted at once, and -2 needs to be careful not to drift back into the second section. Fluid 4 and Spread 4. Fluid 4 is two fighting wing sections in line abreast, separated by 1 to 1.5 miles. It provides excellent maneuverability with solid mutual visual support and works well in medium altitude operations. Pros are the mentioned maneuverability. If you have an inexperienced wingman, putting them as -2 or 4 keeps them close and helps them stay in formation. It provides a good level of BVR firepower. Cons are that an adversary could see all 4 aircraft and you cannot fly low level. Spread 4 has the outside jets increase their spread, whilst still holding about 30 degrees behind the section leaders. It sacrifices some of Fluid 4's maneuverability for more visual support. Pros are an enemy would find it hard to spot the entire flight and maximising BVR firepower. Cons are the mentioned manoeuvring difficulties and you still cannot fly at low level. Box. Box is section 1 in 1 to 1.2 mile spread, trailed by 1 to 3 miles by section 2 in the same spread. This formation has a lot going for it. The same offensive and defensive combat spread ideas work here. Tighten up if you're defensive. Pros are excellent mutual visual support, spotting the whole formation is hard, good maneuverability, and the second section can immediately engage an adversary attacking the first section from the rear. Cons are it's not the best at low level and poor visual performance. Trail. Finally, let's talk about trail. Trail is when each member of the flight is following 1 to 3 miles behind the member in front. It can be a useful way to depart or approach an airfield in poor visibility. Tactically speaking, it will give you time deconfliction on a target, and trailing wingmen can provide damage assessments to those in front, but flight members in front can provide zero visual support for members behind them. Also, any air defences alerted by the first attacker will get several more chances for a shoot down as the rest of the flight flies over. This is best saved for low or no threat ground attack environments. Pros are excellent manoeuvrability, providing trailing elements do not lose sight of those in front. Cons are poor mutual visual and tactical support as you go back through the trail. Manoeuvring. So you'll lead in a line formation, looking to take down some air threats. A threat pops up to your 1 o'clock, so your formation turns to face it, and all of a sudden you're in a widely spaced echelon formation. Dash 4 is way ahead of you, getting spiked and wants to know what to do. You're having to go full burner to catch up. What happened? You maneuvered as if you were individual aircraft. Maneuvering as a formation is a bit more complex, but easy to learn. Generally speaking, in a formation, you want to use geometry rather than big throttle movements alone to maintain formation, and these maneuvers take advantage of that. All turns are performed at mil power and 4G unless the situation dictates otherwise, like very high altitude. Lead should choose the turn, inform the flight of the turn and final heading, and give the go order. In a division line, you can do 3 maneuvers: a check turn, a tac turn, and a hook turn. A nav turn and a cross turn can be done in formations that feature only a 2-ship line or echelon, like a box formation or the wedge. Any formation where a section is in trail of a lead section, like box or wedge, the trailing section waits until they are in the same location as section 1 was when they started the maneuver. Check turn. A check turn is a turn less than 30 degrees. This is the turn you would have used in that last situation. The person on the outside of the turn, having the furthest distance to travel, would simply perform the turn. Those inside the turn perform the turn at the same time, then use a small amount of nose up and several S-turns known as pumps around the final heading to reduce downrange distance and therefore fall back into line. Nav turns. A nav turn is a turn between 30 and 60 degrees and is the most complex turn in my opinion. The person on the outside of the turn, as normal, completes the turn. The person on the inside, in this case dash 1, waits until dash 2 points at them or is wings level and turns the opposite direction. The closer the two aircraft are to line abreast, the more the turn away is. If in line, you should turn away by as much as 70 to 80 degrees. If in wedge, it will be more like 20 degrees. Dash 1 flies until they cross dash 2's heading and then turns to final heading themselves. That was a turn away from wingman. Now section 2 shows a turn into wingman, with the maneuver delayed till the same point. Tac turn. A tac turn is a turn between 60 and 120 degrees. The person on the outside of the turn, dash 1 here, with the furthest to go, performs the turn. The next person waits until dash 1 is pointing at them or wings level, then begins their turn, and so on until the formation is turned. Hook turn. A hook turn is a 120 to 240 degree turn. All flight members simultaneously turn in the same direction to the chosen heading. Cross turn. A cross turn is a two-ship 180-degree turn. As I mentioned, if in a box formation, the trailing section waits until they are at the point where section 1 initiated the turn. Both members turn into each other, the wingman going slightly high to deconflict. You are likely to be further apart after the turn, so the wingman should look to dip the nose and get back into place. This turn is excellent for the sudden defense of a rear quarter bandit, as the bandit will have to focus on one flight member, leaving the other to engage its flank or rear quarter. Notes worth mentioning are, as a division line to turn 45 degrees, you could do two separate check turns, or a tac turn, then check turn back again. A fluid 4 formation has two fighting wing sections, so dash 2 and 4 use their cone of manoeuvring to stay with their leads, and dash 1 and 3 maneuver as if a two-ship line abreast. If your head is spinning, don't worry. I suggest grabbing some friends and going and trying some formations and turns. It's fairly easy to pick up, quite satisfying, and may end up being one of the most effective tools you have. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share and discuss. Let me know what you think, as well as ideas for videos that we'd like to see in the comments. Thanks for watching. Learning with Lovo.